Hello everyone, it is 11:48 Eastern and we are about, as the crow flies, 12 minutes into Thursday, and I have to mark this day as the reigniting of the division. And what I mean by that is, if you remember, 2 years ago, Mr. Davis, Mark Davis, you know, the owner of the Raiders, our friend, came to Oakland Raider training camp and got into a famous and famously recorded argument with Godfather Grizz of Forever Oakland. And that encounter, where it was marked by a comment Mark Davis made that Mark Davis would never have made, that Al Davis would never have made, but Mark Davis did make. Long day, folks. And he said, and I quote, in response to Godfather, something else. We're back. Okay. At any rate, what I was saying is that in response to Godfather Grizz's statement that, hey, you know, you're going to divide the fan base, Mark Davis was heard and recorded making this statement. I'm fine with that. His words. I'm fine with that. Fast forward to the encounter at this year's training camp, where you had Mark Davis on the other side of the room, Forever Oakland over here, alumni visiting both camps, but they were quite literally camps divided. And an eerie tableau, But those two scenes were appropriate tastes, appropriate measures, appropriate toes in the water that measured the barometer of anger that Oakland Raider fans have with Mark Davis. Today, arguably, because of the groundbreaking, it's reached a new fever pitch. And it's been heightened by the behavior of a minority of fans who seem intent on, I guess, for reasons that can only be attributed to nothing else better to do, upset some of the fan base. And I say some because the Oakland Raider fan base is much larger than the non-Oakland fan base. And when I say non-Oakland fan base, I don't mean people living outside Oakland. I mean Oakland Raider fans who live outside of Oakland, yet to this day will tell you that, as Arthur Blank said to me in an interview 2 years ago, I can't see the Raiders without Oakland. The vote that occurred this year was kind of a test. Let's see how far you go. You want a right to move the team? Go ahead. Of course, the Raiders and the NFL wanted to control the land, and it was also alleged that among all people, Oakland Athletics president Dave Cavall called the NFL and the Raiders, expressing his desire to help keep the Raiders in Oakland, and received a return phone call from neither party. Neither party. Wow. Neither party. Think about that. Neither party. So here we are right now with, and I've seen the exchanges on social media, And I had to make a video earlier because one person, Hector Hernandez, and I say that since I made the video with his name on it, you know, behaved in a way that an adult doesn't behave. And I would venture a guess that in his better way, at a moment when his better angels are on his shoulder, I think Mr. Hernandez would say, you know what, I shouldn't have come off that way. Because there's something that tells me that Hector Hernandez is not that kind of person, all right? But here we are. We have, in just a few hours, a vote coming up that will have an impact on the perception of the ability of the Raiders to finish, well, if you like, start the Las Vegas NFL Stadium plan. And that is the GOP tax bill, the House version, not the Senate version with the poison pill. That's the removal of the individual mandate, which, you know, I don't think is such a bad idea. And, you know, I'm as staunch an Obama supporter as there has ever been, and a person who's amazingly benefited from the Affordable Care Act. But all the individual mandate is basically saying, hey, look, if you don't get health care, you get taxed. And I want to say this just as a momentary aside, and then I'll get back to sports. But think about this. You don't have, if you pay a tax into it, that brings revenue into the government, okay? But if you take it away, there's no revenue. So how can you argue that it actually saves money when you're taking revenue, potential revenue, away from the government? Now, on one of the news channels, one of the reporters said, well, they believe that some people will obtain a subsidy. Yeah, but the subsidy, to assume that the subsidy is going to go to everybody or a substantial level that it produces that kind of deficit is just simply playing games with numbers. It's not the case at all. You know, it's really nonsensical. Bottom line, the tax bill provision should not have been the Senate version. Will it contaminate the House version? We'll have to see, you know. The introduction of the health care proportion made the bill look ugly on the Senate side. And again, like I said, you've got the House bill. You've got the House version. So let's see. And the House version will pass. And again, the provision on the Senate side, in fact, you know what? This is beginning to look scarier and scarier for those who don't want an exemption, for those who don't want a block on the use of tax-exempt bond financing for sports. This is beginning to look scarier and scarier because politically this is how it's beginning to shape up. The Senate bill side looks really ugly. Nobody wants that one. Everybody wants the House bill version, right? Which just so happens to have Section 3604 in it. Which, depending upon how you look at it, is either a poison pill for the Raiders deal in Las Vegas or not. Okay? And I say not. If it goes in there, it's going to kill the Las Vegas deal. I mean, even the NFL knows that. And I know for a fact the league knows that. And I believe, and I'll say this, I'm going to say this right here and right now, okay? I believe there are some people in the league who are actually rooting for the House tax bill to pass, if only to kill the Raiders' attempt in Las Vegas, and to make the NFL ownership group truly a division between the Stan Kroenke haves and the Mark Davis have-nots, thereby saying to the Mark Davis have-nots, if you don't have enough money to play with us, if you can't do the right deals to play with us, then you need to sell your team. After today, I firmly, and I'm not going to go into a reason why, because it was unexpected, but I firmly, 1,000%, okay? So, Okay, does this work? Okay, I'm live, I'm back. All right. Moving forward and moving along. Okay. Back. Back. All right, now, I wish there were a way to put out a notification to let people know that I was back, but you know what I'm saying? But I'm back. This freezes up. It's going, this is wild. Hey, ML, how are you? And I am now going to tweet this out. And now we're back to everybody seeing this, okay? Hold on a second, and I'll get to your comments. One of you, I think Victor, was saying, you don't know 1,000% what I believe, and I've been very honest about it. The reason why you don't know what I believe is because you're looking for a quick fix, and I'm not going to give you a quick fix. I'm going to force you to think. I'm going to say, hey, look, here's the checklist of things that aren't being done. And in that checklist is why I rail, because I have used terms in describing this, like, for example, Keystone Cops. I have said this is, I believe I used the term inept. I have used the term incompetent. Yeah, so I don't like losing to a group that doesn't know what it's doing. And Victor, you haven't gotten that message if you're around, but I'm telling you, I insist, as an urban planning educated person who has that background and then poured the urban planning background into media, I know how this is supposed to be done. And what's even more to the point is there are people at the NFL who know that I know how this is supposed to be done, okay? And they're at a very high level. So I have no problem. I officially have zero problem telling you what I'm telling you in detail. If you don't want to listen to it in detail, fine, okay? But that's you, right? But I am telling you that this deal has a lot of problems and it's a freaking joke. That is what I believe. That's what I believe, is all this secrecy and all this stuff that's been thrown at us for some time. But you don't know how to recognize it, and I do. I'm not JT the Brick, and JT is my friend, but look, JT is a homer paid by the homies. And a homer paid by the homies. He's not really a homer because he doesn't live in Oakland. I like JT, but, you know, it doesn't mean I have to agree with him, all right? So, hey, Boss, how are you? Boss says Oakland will follow the Raiders. Smart idea, setting Oakland up to fail. A lot of you act like this is over, and it's not. And it's not. Oh, Richard Goodton says, when you were making your 1,000% comment, half of it was cut off, buffering. Okay, what I'm saying is this. Yeah, sorry about that. That's this AT&T is really screwed up. But what I'm saying is that Victor was asking me, he says, we don't know 1,000% what you believe. And I've been very direct about what I believe and very forthcoming about what I believe. And what I found, it's not so much what I believe, it's what I found and what I stick to. And there are basic tenets about the deal that I point to again and again and again that are a problem. And they haven't resolved themselves for the most part. So, again, when we first started talking about this, I used to say, this isn't rocket science. And I'll just return to that. It's not rocket science. It's not hard to figure out. And in life, one thing you really have to make sure that you do is don't discount what's in front of your face. This is what is in front of our collective faces. Of the 14 agreements, only 13 remain undone. There's no parking. There's no financing for the $27 million annual gap in stadium operating costs caused by the expected, not given yet, expected Bank of America loan. Why? Because the Raiders haven't turned the land over and they haven't signed the non-relocation agreement. And I don't care what anyone says about, oh, the Raiders say they're going to get that done. You know what? When we first started on this way back in March, Stephen Hill of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority said that they were going to have all these documents done in 5 months. Remember that? Remember that? Remember that? Hello, McFly, you remember that? I haven't forgot it. We're way outside of 5 months, Dorothy. And Toto is barking. You can hear Toto going, "Rah, rah, rah." Remember Toto from The Wizard of Oz? If you haven't seen The Wizard of Oz, you're not an American citizen. So, just saying. Now, then there's this other, and Jim Obius says, and people find the new stadium in Minneapolis and Atlanta to be a success. And how come most people don't find Las Vegas to follow the same path? It's, Jim Obius, that's a good question, but, and then it's also not a good question. But the reason, let me explain. There's two sides to this, okay? There's, well, it has to do with, look, there are two reasons. And I'm not going to draw it out, I'll just say it. First of all, it's stadium financing, okay? Stadium financing, in other words, having enough money to build it, and then the cost of it, that's the first reason. And then the second reason is the market itself. So let's take stadium finance first. What people have to remember is that when we started looking at this a year ago, plus, in fact, this is now, do you realize that this is almost 1 year to the day that the hotel tax was approved by Clark County? Yeah, that's right, 1 year. So when people started looking at this, discussing it 6 months before that point, this point, okay, Sheldon Adelson was involved, and one of my informants who's still involved in the project told me, and I remember, I'll never forget it because I almost fell out of the car. And we were talking about the problem posed by trying to have a too small debt coverage ratio on a bond issue that the size of what was being proposed that should have the industry standard of 2. And if you don't understand what that means, just give me a big, like, you know, something like, what does that mean? I'll explain the debt coverage ratio thing to you. But we're in the middle of this conversation. I'm on the phone, I'm driving. And this person just out of the blue says, and Sheldon Adelson is doing this out of the goodness of his heart, and he is investing his own money. And see, at that point, it wasn't known the degree to which Sheldon Adelson was going to involve himself monetarily in the project. But my friend revealed it. And then much later, September 8th, Robert Goldstein, the chief operating officer of Las Vegas Sands, said, hey, Mr. Adelson is going to pay for, and we are going to pay for, because he works for Adelson, the operating losses and cost overruns. What everyone forgets to this point, both proponents and opponents of the deal, is that the deal was structured for Sheldon Adelson by Sheldon Adelson. And it was done to siphon off hotel tax money away from what would have been an even larger, and from Adelson's perspective, more damaging expansion of the Las Vegas Convention Center. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The Las Vegas Convention Center for Sheldon Adelson is his Moby Dick. It's his white whale. And he is Captain Ahab, who was tried for the better part of about almost 20 years to take the hotel tax candy away from the baby, yank it away from him, and thereby slow down the baby's growth so that the baby doesn't get so big that it destroys his, in terms of success, Sands Expo and privately financed convention center. That's his issue, okay? That's Mr. Adelson's issue. And so the Raiders and Mark Davis presented for Mr. Adelson the perfect foil. But I'm not saying that he didn't have good intentions. He did. But he had, as befits a person who gets to the level of wealthy commands, had other more complicated reasons. And that was one. It was also intertwined in the political reason, which is, hey, I want UNLV to be better, and I want them to get their stadium, but then that stadium can help us bring in more tourists year-round. There are certain times of the year where there are parts of Las Vegas along the Strip and the South End that look like they're ghost town. I'll just say it. And then along comes a big convention, and everything looks great, and then everybody leaves. And it's always pointed out to me when I talk with cab drivers, but if you want to see an example of what I'm talking about yourself, go to booking.com and look up the hotel rates right now, and then look at what they're going to be for a Consumer Electronics Show, January 9th to the 12th, okay? Or any of the other conventions. Look at how they do this, all right? Really high, $400 a night, $300 a night, and then low, $27 a night, and so on, okay? Like that. Check that out. So, and then of course there's 1 October, all right? So, my point is, Jim QB, is it QB or OB? My point is that you've got a stadium financing structure which has this gap that exists in terms of operating loss. And also you have, but as long as Sheldon Adelson was around to pay for it, that was okay. That was okay. But then, in late January, early February, something happened. And that something was that the original lease proposal that was written by the Raiders left out any mention of Las Vegas Sands in terms of percentages. This was a while you had Mark Davis working with Sheldon Adelson to literally design the stadium, furniture and everything else, right? And then you had Andy Aboud going to meetings with Mark Bedang. Okay, they were like, together, right? Going forward, ebony and ivory and all that great stuff, right? And Adelson found out and just pulled. And the reason, and it wasn't the first time that Adelson felt that he was caught in the middle of a double cross. The first time, because the second time was February, early, okay? And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. The first time was last October when, late November, was the pair had issues to begin with. In fact, almost the same week the deal was signed, you had mutterings of the Raiders wanting too much. Remember that? Remember that? And Adelson said, well, heck, you know what? We can walk away from the deal, words to that effect. And everyone was like, oh my God, this thing's going to collapse really quick. So there have been a number of episodes like that, fits and starts, for a deal that was structured for Sheldon Adelson. It really was. But see, in October leading toward November, Adelson learned that some NFL owners wanted him out and replaced, and the NFL commissioner, Roger Goodell, was not at all warm to the idea of a casino owner even getting partial revenues, and said so. And I might add, that policy is still out there. I don't care what anyone says. Yeah, Roger was at the groundbreaking. Yeah, he grabbed the shovel. But the NFL has not changed its formal policy. I repeat, the NFL has not changed its formal policy. Okay? So, Jim, still answer your question. And this is why it's frustrating for you, Victor, because I answer in detail. All right? I'm not here to flame people or that sort of thing. I don't engage in immature behavior. Okay? I rail against it because, and I digress, when you think that way, it means you're not capable of rigorous thinking. It means you're not capable of grabbing a sheet of paper and writing down the figures and the problems. All right? I don't have my pen here. I didn't plan to do that, but I might. Because, well, I'm not going to. I'll just talk it. But, Jim, then Adelson stepped out. And a number of people, even before Adelson stepped out, all right? And, oh, you're welcome, Jim. I'm not done answering, but thank you for thanking me, right? But before Adelson stepped out, there was talk that first Goldman Sachs was going to replace Adelson. No, the term replace, it didn't come from me. It came from media types. You don't replace Sheldon Adelson with a bank. You don't replace a guy that's worth $30 billion with a bank that happens to be his client. And yet there was that idea bandied out there that that's what was going to happen. And then Goldman Sachs made it known that, hey, look, we have no intention of doing that. But that masks the other truth, that no bank was going to walk in and do what Adelson said he was going to do. Cover operating losses of the stadium and cost overruns. So, Jim, that's the stadium side, okay? That's just trying to build it, all right? And then let's consider how the cost overruns have already increased as we speak. I mean, as we've talked about this. First of all, we had the notorious $900 million traffic impact cost estimate that was issued by the Nevada Department of Transportation that made the Nevada legislature of 2016 nearly go apoplectic. And it almost killed the vote, okay? And then there's the provision in the Southern Nevada Tourism Infrastructure Act, which says, hey, the developer, Raiders, have to pay a, quote, adequate, unquote, amount of the off-site transportation infrastructure cost. Now, what does that mean? That's a very fancy way of saying you have to pay for upgrades to highways and interchanges. You have to have high occupancy vehicle lanes, one interchange. What's an interchange? It's like a cloverleaf. You got to overpass over here and there like that, right? Looks like that, right? That's $200 million right there, folks, okay? They have to pay for that. Then some people thought, oh, that's okay. Donald Trump's going to come along and he's going to do his great public-private partnership. Oh, yeah? Well, no, he took that off the table. See, a lot of the problem here has been proponents on social media throwing out articles of faith. Not fact, faith. Like the Trump plan. That was an article of faith in something that was taken off the table. Okay? What we have, however, are facts. You've got costs and revenues. Those are the facts. That's what I deal in. Cost and revenue. When Sheldon Adelson was involved, the deal looked like this. I mean, Adelson was involved. It was like, you know what? Uncle. Because he's got the money to do it. And he's got the drive and determination. I'm an admirer of Sheldon Adelson. Not his politics, but his contributions to urban economics and urban development. Big fan. Big fan. And urban design. Have you ever been to Venetian or Palazzo? Great hotels, okay? Big admirer of what he's done and how he's played a key role along with Steve Wynn in turning Las Vegas around into what it is today. Big ups, all right? You cannot be involved in urban planning and have a childhood interest in developers and development like John Portman and the Hyatt Regencies and not be a fan excuse me, of what Sheldon Adelson has done. You cannot be. So some of you who have a hard time understanding where I'm coming from, I keep telling you, I'm at heart a planner and a builder. That's my education. I started a media company to get out my side of stories because I have a technical acumen that others don't possess. And that's just a fact. You don't have a lot of people like me growing on trees. Okay? So that, coming back to the answer to your question, Jim, because it's a good one. I'm sure a lot of people have had it and probably didn't know how to ask. But there's the stadium side. And all the complications I listed can be distilled down to this. The cost to build the stadium is greater than the money that they have available. The cost to build the stadium is greater than the money they have available. Okay? That's the basic problem. And when I say build the stadium, you have to consider all of the legal roadblocks that are being put in their collective way. For example, the aforementioned highway improvements, then there's the parking that's by law, Clark County regulations, that you can't just wave goodbye, all right? That's all a part of it. And then this goes back to how the deal changed. There's another even bigger problem, and that is when the deal was originally structured, it was supposed to have a tax increment financing district. The Las Vegas Stadium Authority essentially governs what is a 25-mile radius Stadium Authority district. That place, that gigantic circle, okay, was originally supposed to be such that you would be able to establish tax increment financing zones within it. What is a tax increment financing zone? A tax increment financing zone works like this. It says, hey, I've got this zone of, let's say this is like land that's, empty, okay? I've got this zone, this land that's empty. And normally the property taxes that are generated, 35%, I believe in the case of Nevada, goes to Clark County, right? And then it has the other distributions for the $1, right? But if it's a tax increment financing district, all of the property tax that's generated goes to the Stadium Authority. And the Stadium Authority can use that money to help finance the construction of other buildings, which would do what? Which would generate revenue. Or it can take that revenue and use that revenue to pour into stadium construction, right? That was the original idea. But then something funny happened on the way to the completed contract. And that something funny was a big fat P, and it's called politics. And the politicians said, hey, Sisolak's thinking I'm running for governor, and I need to structure this to make me look good, right? Just being honest. And he spearheads and agrees to, because of political pressure from the outside, taking away the tax increment financing district I discussed with you and capping stadium construction public contribution costs at 39%. Okay? Cut it right off there. Now, Majestic at the time was involved. Now, Majestic really wanted that tax increment financing district. It set up a huge power play, though. All right? Basically, they were going to have this, originally, they were going to have this stadium, this developer ran Las Vegas Stadium Authority. That was the original design, collecting tax revenue money for themselves, like for Caesars and for other, for Las Vegas Sands, which originally was supposed to have a scene on it, and it doesn't, okay? It doesn't. And they were going to be in a great position to use tax money to enhance the wealth of their current property structure. That's how that was built. So I'm trying to tell you, the way the original deal was done would have not resulted in the problems you see today. The reason why you see the problems today of lack of funds is because of how the original deal was dismantled. You took away tax increment financing, okay? You took away the original idea of building other mixed other developments around it property, okay? Which would have called for more land acquisition of buildings that are there now by eminent domain, okay? You took that away. Then you took away Sheldon and Adelson. So you see little by little how these, I call them items of financial wealth, were taken out of the picture to get us where we are today. So it's really important to understand that. And also understand it from a spreadsheet perspective before you can really talk intelligently about this thing. And it takes some patience and some suspension of emotion and desire to learn. It's like learning math. In fact, you have to know math to understand this math. And you have to have a love for wanting to understand this deal. So, Jim, I said there's two sides to this, right? That's the stadium side. And I hope you see the picture where we are right now, which is basically this. There's not enough money to build it. And then at the same time, because of parking, infrastructure, and then of course, the heretofore still unknown site prep costs, those costs kept going up. So you had the stadium costs going up while the revenue to pay for it looked like it wasn't going anywhere. And then there's the other problem, which is that the hotel tax, as I've said before, and I said to Las Vegas City Council and to Las Vegas Stadium Authority, the Clark County Commissioners, the hotel tax isn't big enough. It was originally supposed to be 1%, and then got watered down to 7%, of 0.7%, and then it got increased to 88/100% when it should have been left at 1%. Why? It would have given them, even right now, even after 1 October, the nice waterfall cushion such they would have had nothing to worry about. But see, I put out a post saying that 1.4% was better. That's what they should have used. Steve Sisolak got mad at me. The guy I won't mention sent me a hot email that, was kind of weird. But he knows I'm right. The tax should have been 1.4%. Not 88/100%. You want to have a gigantic revenue fall. So again, what rails me is about how many little mistakes have been made in this. And yet this is all supposed to come out okay with those items intact. You are a fool if you believe that. And you really don't know what you're talking about. And let alone have any desire to sit down and build a spreadsheet, model a development spreadsheet, okay, where you've got cost here, revenues here, net operating income, and cash flow in your spreadsheet for 1 year and then for 30 years, okay, or if you like, in a year to year out over a 30-year period, okay. So stadium side. Then, of course, we come to what feeds the other part of the stadium side, and that's the market side. And the market side, it goes like this. Hey, look, you're going to need 45% of your ticket base as tourists, okay? And because of the fickle and volatile nature of Vegas, where you're in a position where you have an event like a Raiders game that brings in 65,000 people, you hope you're going to have hotels jacking up their prices and thereby forming a figurative shield or economic barrier to entry for anyone who would want to regularly come to a Raider game. So it's illogical to expect per game sellouts. There's no stadium in National Football League Stadium that is even remotely like what is being proposed in Las Vegas. None. Now, the flip side of that explanation is this, and it was brought forth by none other than Jerry Jones, who, when he was inducted in the Hall of Fame, said, our season ticket holders only 7% of our fan base, which you can really take to mean, hey, they don't care about how many fans come to the game. And I believe that's the case. And I remember Amy Trask said that there was, and I had an argument with Eric Grubman about this because I did not believe that the NFL would approve a Super Bowl for a stadium that had only 55,000 seats. He asserted, yeah, that was the case. I didn't believe it. But I do know that thinking among a number of sports venue planners is that the dynamics of the need to have persons in seats at the games is changed in such a way that people want to have fewer of them paying more money. Who does that hurt? It hurts you, the average blue-collar fan, and you should be very concerned about that. That's why I said that the groundbreaking that you saw or may have seen, I didn't watch it, on Monday was a portent of how the Raiders want things to look. Not necessarily that they'll happen, but want to look. Okay? Does it have to happen that way? No, it does not. It really doesn't. Because you look, there are a number of examples of even the Dallas Cowboys drawing 90,000 a game, 80 to 90,000. Oakland can do that in Oakland and price it reasonably. You can work out the economics. I did it. Anyone who bothered to look at it said, hey, he got the equation right. Hey, but some people don't like, intellectually aggressive black guys to this day because they're, woohoo, as I say, racism is a mental illness. All right. So anyway, but my point is that that's the market side. Oh, and then of course, the market side drives this other problem, and it's an enormous one. Even though, okay, maybe they can get away without having sellouts, there is that problem with Las Vegas, very small market size, being 40 times less than the Bay Area, and that's this. It's your ability to attract the kind of sponsors that Atlanta drew for $1 billion, which is more than enough to pay off their Bank of America loan at $850 million. Numbers sound familiar? It should. It's the one that was proposed for Las Vegas and the Raiders. Okay? The difference is that the Raiders don't have that $1 billion, and they don't even have a naming rights agreement saying, hey, all right, hey, we've got it. The SNCIC documents projected a naming rights agreement of about $210 million. So if you have some Yahoo running around saying, oh, they're going to get $100 million, your job is to laugh at them. Because if they say that with confidence as if, oh, the deal is worked because they can get a $100 million naming rights agreement, that person has no idea what they're talking about. None. There's a lot of that going around. And not only that, the numbers are right there in the original SNTIC documents. All you got to do is read them, get your calculator out, do a little math, plug in your spreadsheet, and move along. It's all right in your freaking face. Jeez. All right. There you go. I know I realize I missed a lot of your comments, but I really wanted to... That was a really great question, Jim, and I wanted to make sure I got it. Harry Dunn, how are you? Harry says, I don't understand how the Raiders cannot like the idea of the Coliseum site now that the A's are moving into a Peralta. They would have around 60 acres to work with. I agree with you. Silver May says, Lloyd Christmas owning an NFL team. There are a lot of comments here I can't get to. The 411 says, low attendance and low TV views in a small market will lose the NFL more money than boycotting going around this year. Yep. Crawford says, the Coliseum site is open. Jim QB says, thank you so much for that, Zenny62. And thank you for asking. It was one of the better questions I've had this year. I honestly have to give you that. It really was a great question. And it really forced me to get to the heart of the matter of the problem, because I think I'm going to go back to Victor's comment. Sorry, Victor. I know this has been kind of ginky today. Oh, and Jim QB says, I agree with the market side. And as one person said earlier, Atlanta and Minneapolis have tested and improved in markets. And, it's not only that, they have well-done deals, okay? They didn't have a deal that was disproportionately financed by one person, whereas this deal has that problem. It was designed to be disproportionately financed by Sheldon Adelson. And so it was just, that's the way it was done. And you've got, and Jim's QB says, typically stadiums go through cost overruns, Santa Clara, Atlanta, and even Minneapolis. But here's the problem. Having a cost overrun of like 10% is one thing, but 50%? We're looking at something that originally you thought was going to cost you maybe 1.7 billion, and now it's like 2.5 billion and 2.6 billion. Why? Because of costs that really should have been considered from the jump. Parking is one, but then the Raiders got surprised by the parking number later, after they made the decision to come here, right? And I'll bet you that issue didn't even come up in the NFL meeting, like, hey, how much are you gonna have to spend for parking? You got that nailed down? Nope. Or then there's, of course, there was the Nevada Department of Transportation $900 million report, which, by the way, Martell companies stepped forward in a public comment document that was not even addressed in the meetings and wrote, and the media didn't even pay attention to it. I did, and I've talked about it before, wrote that, hey, the study that NDOT wrote was wrong. Why? Because it did not bother to actually project the stadium's real transportation production. How many cars are going to be let out onto Tropicana and I-15 and the interchange that goes into the airport after a game at a time when the airport is letting out, right? Where you have peak airport traffic. That was never factored in, okay? So it's not known. It's not known. To this day, it's still not known. And then Sisolak says, well, you know, we're just going to have to get used to a lot of traffic. Okay, that's, you know what, you want to put together a soundbite commercial of a way to sink a guy who's running for governor? Steve Sisolak just giving you a mound of material, man. Whew, really has. So anyway, see what other comments I'm missing here. And I think I got Harry done. Rich Gaitan says, Zenny62, can you expand further on Sands Las Vegas as a publicly traded company? They are going to pursue, attract every top act and block Mark Davis Stadium in this pursuit. You can bet your bippies they will. And that announcement should give everyone involved with the Las Vegas Stadium Authority pause and say, hey, wait a minute. They're trying to screw us. Because with that, and this goes to that stadium part of the ledger, the financing part and the market part of the ledger, excuse me, because the market feeds the stadium financing in terms of operating revenue. What do I mean by that? I mean, the more events you can attract, the better your chance to not only meet but exceed the operating revenue projections, which allows you to pay for the stadium operating costs. And see, the Bank of America loan, that cost, the existence of it on a year-to-year basis puts you in a $27 million hole. So you've got to say, and that's with a $210 million naming rights agreement. That's right, okay? They have to come up with an extra $27 million to pay off that loan. They can't just plop it on there and say, oh, call it a day. The numbers are right there. And that's why I've been so pissed off with this. I said, wait a minute, these numbers are right here. All you have to do is overlay Bank of America's loan onto it, and whoa, hello, I get a deficit. The original loan that was put on there as a test was only $75 million. It wasn't $850 million. That's right, $75 million over a 30-year period. It wasn't $850 million. Now here comes Bank of America. It's like, holy cow, King Kong, you know what I mean? Come on. Woo. That's over a 30-year period, that's $28 million, that's 28.333 million, if I'm not mistaken, additional per year in annual cost. That's a loan you have to pay off. Oh, and then if I turn around and say, we want you to pay it off for 20 years, you have an even bigger problem. Where's the $1 billion in sponsorships? Okay. So, all of that, to get back to Rich's question, all of that is impacted by what will be the stadium/event center's even harder task of getting big events, because it has to compete with Las Vegas Sands and T-Mobile, and of course you've got Steve Wynn's structure going up as well. That's a tall order. That's a tall order. That is a tall order. It really is. And you can't tell me Las Vegas Sands didn't do that on purpose. Just saying. Their board green-lighted that. That was manageable. Now, someone in the article said, well, it's not for sports, so it's okay. Oh, jeez. I think it was Sisolak who said that. Man. Oh, let's see. The 411 says low attendance, got that one. Bashula says Harry Dunn because he won't get into public love right now. I think, okay. Oh, Harry Dunn says, why can't Mark Davis sell the team to some rich tech guy or gal in Silicon Valley and get $1 billion plus for the team and keep the team in the Bay Area? Yeah. And Bossy Ruler says, Davis loves attention because he was not as a kid. I don't know about all that. Crawford says, either way, with a new bill and a new bill in 2018, stadiums will be on the bench for a very long time. Yep. And speaking of being on the bench, I'm gonna go to bed early because I want to get up because I want to see the GOP tax bill vote, House version. Crawford says, Victor, this is like pro wrestling, where the bad guy beats up the good guy, and the good guy will eventually come back and win. Yeah, I mean, that was a great one, Crawford. I love that one. I'm gonna repeat that one. Crawford 371. I gotta highlight this one. This is awesome. All right. Crawford says, Victor, this is like pro wrestling, where the bad guy beats up the good guy, and the good guy will eventually come back and win. I like that. I really like that one. Or, you know, it could be like Malcontent put it last night. It's like Irwindale, right? Okay. I mean, the Raiders had this groundbreaking, and they say they're going to change their name to the Irwindale Raiders and all that. And then at the end of the day, Irwindale craps out. So if you think about it, all right, as I have recently, this deal could look like a combination of Irwindale and Oakland. You've got the worst of both. You've got Raiders deal 2, right? Based on Raider deal 1 in Oakland. And then you've got Irwindale. It's like they're both slammed together. What would you call that deal? Like the Irwindale Raiders deal 2? Yeah, Irwindale Raiders deal 2. That's what it looks like. It's starting to look like that. It really is. Richard Hike, how you doing? He says, I think it's very possible that the final bill is going to be closer to $4 billion. Yeah, and they're going to choke on it. And so Harry Dunn says, I think the mystique died a bit in L.A. Yep. And Richard Hike says, what does the interest on $850 million look like? That comes out to be, I think the total bill was $916 million, something like that. Yeah, I believe it was something like that. So I have to double check my calculations. And you guys are talking about the mystique here. Talking about the Raiders mystique being done in Vegas. Well, like I said before, if you take Oakland, if you take the Raiders out of Oakland, you take Oakland, out of the Raiders. It's just that question. Just that simple. It really is. Really is. And, oh, Ed Flores says, Zinni, what does the NFL prefer, the Raiders in Vegas or Oakland? Well, it depends on who you talk to. If you talk to Jerry Jones, he prefers the Raiders in Vegas. If you talk to other people I'm not going to mention, and some of the staffers, they prefer, I mean, I can tell you the commissioner prefers the Raiders in Oakland. He will tell you they didn't get what they wanted. And there were a number of NFL people who were very upset with the mayor. And I think that's as much as I can tell you. All right? They're really, I mean, plate smashing upset. Plate smashing upset. That's how upset they were. Okay? There's still a lot of hard feelings there. And some people kind of waiting to see what happens with this next election, right? But there's a lot of hard feelings there. A lot. So, yeah, there's that. There that is. Now, in fairness to the mayor, the Raiders didn't operate in good faith either. So you have that. That's why, and it goes back to something I've said before. And I've said to Libby, I said, Libby, you know what? You want to make sure that your plate is clean, that your approach is clean, okay? So that if you have to turn around and look at what they're doing, they can't look at you and say, hey, look what you did. But see, that's the situation we're in. They can say, you know what? You did this. And you negotiated through the media. You kept talking us to the media and stuff like that. You did that. Okay. Now she would say, well, you didn't return my phone calls. I got word that you were disrespecting me in meetings, calling me things I didn't want. I got an email from somebody who was passed to me where you spoke about me in a very disrespectful way. I happen to have that email, by the way. Okay, and it's from and it was sent to me, and it originally came from the Raiders. Okay, I have never published it, but I have it. I have it. So there's a lot of bad feelings out there. And, for the most part, justifiably so. But to me, bad feelings should never, ever get in the middle of a good deal. And to its credit, Fortress laid out, especially in this GOP tax bill climate, an awesome deal. Do you realize the Fortress deal would never have been touched? Never. No. Completely impervious. Why? It's a revenue bond. It's not a general obligation bond, not floated by a government entity. It wasn't designed to be tax exempt. That's why. Bing! So, wow. So there you go. So Silver Maze said something. Miss Silver Maze says, if your team needs to rely on Cali fans to fill out that stadium, then what's the point of the stadium in that city? That is a great point. And I do agree. There's poor business logic. Yep, it is. It really is poor business logic. And hey, Kevin KD, bring in the term eviscerated. Eviscerated. Talking about the Raider mystique. And Tony C. Grove says, is Ronnie still interested if everything falls apart in Vegas? I don't get the sense that he personally is involved in that way. But, even though Fortress has said it's moved on, it's kind of like, what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a Star Trek episode where, the Galileo 7. The Galileo 7. In the second season of Star Trek, the original series, the Galileo 7 was led by First Officer Spock and Engineer Montgomery Scott on what was supposed to be the analysis of kind of an unusual gravitational or electric field around a planet, if I'm not mistaken. And they wound up crash landing on the planet, and on the planet there were these creatures that proceeded to kill. It was an interesting study in a juxtaposition of logic and logical behavior and the humans, and but the logic didn't work out, and a bunch of humans got killed, and Spock was like, oh my god, what did I do, right? Anyway, the Enterprise was had in orbit, and Captain Kirk had made the decision he had to go off to this, I think it was to Meniar, or no, another planet, on a very crucial excursion for a dignitary. But he basically said, I want all beams forward, all beams aft. So he's always looking back at what's going on, right? And so when the Galileo, the space shuttle, blasted into orbit, and Spock decides to send up a flare, burning out their fuel, the Enterprise saw it. Okay, so my point is, I have the feeling that's what's going on in Vegas. There's a lot of that Captain Kirk kind of looking back, saying, like, this is what Fortress is doing. They're kind of looking back and saying, well, they're looking for that flare, looking for that flare. They're looking for Spock to panic. That's what they're looking for, okay? All right. Malcontent, how you doing? Is it better than mayor? You should run for Oakland City manager. Is it electable? Oh, boy. Bosch Ruler says Kevin Hart is talking too much trash. About what? Oh, I got to check that out. All right, it is 12:54. And Silverman says, if a 26-year-old Democrat can win in Oklahoma and Red State, you could totally win mayor. And Bosch Ruler points out Star Trek Nerd Time with Zinni. Ding! And let me see what others. Vito says Zinni for mayor. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. My mom is my mom is my heart here, and, she needs my time. So, that's first priority. Victor Pena says, if the deal blows up because of the GOP tax bill or other means, how do you believe Mark Davis reacts? Does he show his face in Oakland again? Do you think he'd talk to the city and county again? I think he would, and I think Scott Haggerty would do so if Scott has not already been talking to him. So, because if they're going to saber rattle about the Coliseum, which I doubt, Scott's going to say, hey, we've got land out in Fremont. Okay, all right. I would hope it doesn't come to that in terms of the Raiders being in Fremont, but my point is there is that possibility of that happening. And there's also the Coliseum. Now, I will tell you, just let things play out a bit here. Let's see what happens tomorrow. And with that, folks, I am gonna go to bed. And tomorrow I'll be traveling. So, I'll try to catch you on Friday, or catch me at what? Let's catch on Friday. But I'm going back. There's a Cal Stanford big game. I think I'm going back. Let's check with me tomorrow, okay? I'll let you know what happens, because things are sort of up in the air for some personal reasons. So let me just sort that out. All right. Okay, folks, but right now, it's bedtime. I'm exhausted, all right? And I thank everybody for another fantastic, as Joseph Binsman says, what would he say? Oh, Crawford asks, Cal or Stanford? Go Bears! Cal will win. Go Bears, beat Stanford. The axe returns to Berkeley this time. Now, I'm a big David Shaw fan, okay? Love him to death. Consider him a friend, talk. But this is the year. I'm tired of losing to him, man. I really am. I'm just tired. I'm just tired. I'm tired. So we'll see what happens. Cal, go Bears, beat Stanford. I'm looking forward to it if that happens. And you can bet your last money. As far as Godfather Grizz, he'll be back when he's back. All right, everybody. It's I'm gonna check out early. I am about to go. Oh, and by the way, Pocket Juice, Rick Rice, you the man. I'll see you guys. I'll see y'all. And Octavia says I have to start early. Octavia, you're right, but there were a lot of extenuating circumstances why I could not do that. So, but you know, hey, you're right. Love, peace, and soul. I'll see you all later. Check in tomorrow. Good night. Good night. Good night, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Binsman. Thank you. Thank you, Octavio. Thank you, John. Thank you, Barry, who showed up earlier. Thank you, Baus. Thank you, Raider Kuko, Rick Rice, Crawford 371, Jim QB, everybody. John Marks. Watch horror films. Keep America strong. I'll see you all later. All right. Good night, everybody. Okay, see ya. See ya.